Welcome back. Well, yeah, taking a look at what's going on with preparations for the elections, the process, as you've seen there. We're joined now by Ademola Abbas, who is a professor of international law and global affairs expert. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning to you, Chamberlain, and your colleagues.
Well, yeah, you must have been keeping an eye on this process, several stages or components before the big day where we all file out to go cast our votes, a ballot, as it were. But now, one of the latest perspective now, or direction or decision, is that INEC will be extending this continuous voter registration. And we've seen some of the hassles associated with that, as you may have seen in that report. But from what you've seen about how this build-up is, particularly about the electorate coming through to ensure that their voice is heard or they participate in one way or the other, you think it's smooth enough or what?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain, and your colleagues once again. Well, look, let's say to start with, INEC has made some progress in recent times from where we were coming. But we've seen this before, to be honest with you. We've seen INEC tell us it was prepared for this, for that, only for the election days to come, and INEC will fail woefully, either in delivering materials into some places and so on and so forth. And just yesterday, I was reading through and I saw the staggering amount of money voted to INEC every time election comes around, and how much INEC has actually requested more this time around. And you wonder, where do all these monies vanish to? Where do they go to? Because I just saw the last clip that you played, and I'm so happy that youths at least are coming out to say, you know what, we want to register. So we have moved from the youth apathy to youth now proactiveness to want to register. It is now on INEC and the political class if the youths are failed, if they are deliberately discouraged from registering, because all this to me, to be honest with you, translate to one thing: a deliberate effort to frustrate mammoth of youth who want to vote their candidates and make sure they rescue Nigeria, pure and simple. Otherwise, it does not make any sense at all. So whatever progress INEC has made, and again, we cannot run away from the fact that INEC has made some, taking some steps. Whatever progress INEC has made so far must translate into enfranchisement of all Nigerian voters, especially and particularly the Nigerian youth, who this time around seem to have woken up from their slumber and they have realized the mortal danger that the current political class has pushed them into.
Do you think that claim dampens the perhaps natural enthusiasm the extension may have brought, or should we just keep our fingers crossed on this one?
But there's no doubt that it's going to it's going to demoralize to some extent at the end of the day. But look, at this point we can't give up. The youth cannot give up. We must keep pushing. The extension, fine, but the question is, what is INEC going to do about the extension? You cannot be extending nonsenses all the times. If you give a deadline is a deadline. You must work towards making sure the deadlines are complied with and are respected. But if you, the setter, so to say, of the deadline, does not do all it requires for your deadline to be complied with, it doesn't matter how many times you extend, you will get the same result, which will be utter fiasco at the end of the day.
You know, it looks like there's conflicting signals on this extension. Yes, we heard at the National Assembly that there's been conversation with INEC, and INEC has agreed to extend. INEC is saying, well, it's not official yet. We have not announced that extension. So it looks like June 30th, at least as at now, is still the date for that deadline. But clearly, as you have seen and corroborated, a lot of young people, a lot of Nigerians want to participate in the process. But it's been said also that, you know what, this started way before now. Okay, there was a window, months and months before now, for people to get involved. So what do you think changed? Is this the usual fire brigade approach, or just towards the end of, towards the deadline, a lot of people realized that, wait a minute, I need to be a part of this? Do you think something monumentally changed in the mindset of Nigerians?
Okay, that's a brilliant question. Look, and I'm focusing particularly on youth today. I'll come back to my generation, those who are in their late 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and this and that. If we just suddenly wake up now to say we are going to register, it's because there's money to be shared, pure and simple. I listened to a conversation in a building site a couple of days ago. I'll just anecdotize it. Two women were discussing in somewhere I was. They were being called out to come and join a political campaign, albeit informal. And one was saying, well, encouraging the other one not to join. And that one said, why? He said, well, why do you want to go? What if there's a riot at that particular place? And the other woman said, well, I will have joined if what they were offering her amounted to a daily wage, which was 3,000 naira for a laborer. And she said, but what they were offering was 1,500 naira, not even up to daily wage. So that struck a chord with me, that woman was not discouraged about going because she thought there would be violence or anything, but because the money they were offering wasn't enough to at least, sort of trade off, are going to work on that particular day. So when you flip it, a person like that will suddenly wake up. If you say, I'm going to pay you 5,000 naira for the day, come and join political, she will rush. That was the time the money has come to her. And that will explain, as I said, my generation or generation of the late 40s and early 50s, so to say, who are now rushing. But when you talk about the youths, let us be cautious here. If the youths are now surging, something monumental has shifted in their, cognitive intelligence. They've seen for the first time, maybe they are now seeing that beyond answer clamor, they are now faced with a mortal danger to their existence, point blank in Nigeria. Nigerians have been brutally impoverished. The youths today are the worst for it. We cannot live in a country in which we keep on emptying our youths to Western Street for goodness sake on a daily basis. So the youth, I think for the first time, if I am not wrong, are now saying, look, I think all this clamor about 2023 now has actually, in your case, one of them just said, finish, you are a graduate, you have nowhere to go. That is not going too far. You have people now, for the first time, I've seen estates now that are battling to have 3-hour supply of energy, electricity per day in 24 hours at the cost of as much as 150,000 naira per month. What are we doing to ourselves? So you have to sort of, you have to segregate it. The surge has happened for two reasons, for two classes. For those who are usually docile, the oldies and this and that, maybe they're asking, well, politics has come around suddenly.
Just a bit about, if I could just get this little clarification on some of the points you made in passing. So what happens if perhaps after some weeks, assuming INEC comes up with that definitive announcement that yes, what the National Assembly or rep says is true about the extension, and then you have a lot more young people register. And then perhaps months before the election or weeks before the election, as the cause of the strike, federal government says, well, we'll sort this now, go back to school. What happens? Because you can't vote where you have registered at the moment if you have to relocate. How do you see that playing out?
Chamberlain, well spotted. And that was what I said earlier on, that for me, I mean, look, we have to really call out certain things here. It seems to me, and I'm not calling it definitely, but it seems to me that the deliberate attempt to discourage the youth from voting. I have made a joke in the past, look, I think one of your interviews, that the government is a very smart one, even if it is brutally incompetent, as far as I'm concerned. It's very smart. Any smart government will know how to take the attention of the youth away. Give them Big Brother Nigeria for 3 months. You suck them for 90 days. You don't focus on national issues. You want to forget about that strike. You want to forget about fuel. You want to forget about no job. Give them 90 days of staying glued to their TV and watching some people on television who do whatever they want to do at the end of the day. Take their attention away. At least for 90 days, you can then go about your business, the government, and demoralize them. So here is it. You extend at the end of the day, as you rightly said, then the universities are open. And that is where the youth have to come up with a deliberate strategy. The old question of what should Nigerians expect from the people they are voting is a recurring question. But for me, we should flip the question. Stop expecting anything from this political class. They have nothing to give. You can't give what you don't have. I'm a lawyer. The first principle of the law you learn is nemo dat non quod habet. You can't give what you don't have. The current political class, as it is constituted, is brutally incompetent, has no clue at all. They don't know what they are doing at all. They have no sympathy or empathy for the youth or for the country. at the end of the day. So you can't
Prof.
be expecting the same people to give you everything. The youth must come up with their own strategy to make sure that if the government does anything that will waste whatever extension is given them to register, then they counterbalance, they countermand that and make sure they register.
Right.
That strategy is up to the youth and their leadership to decide.
Okay, we'll talk about maybe trying to outsmart some of these things you said appears to you as though that's the plan. But I mean, that show you mentioned, it wasn't an idea of government. I mean, it's a private show. In fact, at some point, government, it looked like government was even against it. And you saw a lot of young people say, you know, just leave us with our show, okay? Continue with your governance. But that's by the way, essentially. But at this point that was raised about election proper, when it's time to vote, how would young people, especially the ones that are in school, in case ASU calls off the strike, how would they get to vote and all of that? I believe that it's still the same process. They can always go back to vote where they registered, because this is a very important issue for them. So naturally, that's a way to outsmart, if indeed that's a plan. But I know we have a year until the change of government, well, just less than a year. And the thinking is always election is when you can make a change. But don't forget, we still have almost a year where governance will still happen at the various levels. So elections, one thing, but that's not the only way to be a part or at least decide or influence governance to go the right way, right? So what can young people do aside, registering to vote and eventually vote in election? Because as I said, we still have like a year to go in this governance, at least for this current administration and the ones at the state levels to leave.
Well, thank you, Kayode. I'm going to address your question. I mean, about 3 questions loaded into one. Well, quickly, of course, I know that the Big Brother Nigeria, and I'm not casting aspersion on the program per se, is funded by private entities, not government. But no, what I'm saying is that the government is much smarter than that. Even if there is clamor that should stop a program, and they know that program is going to benefit them at the end of the day, they will permit it. At the end of the day, that's, as you said, let's put that one aside. But the second issue is that it doesn't stop youths from coming back, even if they go back to university, to come and register. But what youths are we talking about now? They've been dehumanized. They've been debased. They have no money. They've been living off their parents. And for those of them who are not engaged in violence and crime and all this, they've been living off their parents. We want them to go back to, so you are living in Lagos, you will go to Anambra now to go and resume after 4 months or 3 months of lockup. Then suddenly now they want to register. Do you want to really tell me that you want to go back, Kayode, from Anambra to probably Sokoto to go and register, when you know that when you go to Sokoto or Kaduna at the end of the day, or Ibadan at the end of the day, INEC is not prepared for you. Registration is not going to take place. Are you not going to think twice before you go there? That is an answer to your second question. But the third leg of your question is, well, of course, contesting politically is not the only way you can help. I said it on your program a few times, that, look, we can join local level. We can be active at our local level. But I realized something, Kayode, you and your crew. No matter how smart you are, no matter what you want to do, the buck stops at the top, at the table of that person who takes political policies. No matter how smart you are, I'm a professor of international, for goodness sake. But at the end of the day, if I am not at the table, then I am on the table. It comes down to the person who is in that small office, who probably has never gotten more than 6, primary 6 education. And mind you, I'm not saying that person cannot be smarter than a professor. I'm saying who might actually be illiterate in some form, who doesn't have the kind of knowledge that you and I have got. It comes down to that person to formulate policies. And that is why, while youth must engage with other processes like, mobilizing to make sure that good candidates come up and this and that, they must also vie for political position. Because I have realized that 1 billion smart professors who are not in political arena are not equal to one total nincompoop or a buffoon who has never seen the 4 walls of a classroom before, who is bereft of any intellectual knowledge, who sits there and makes a policy that will be implemented. And I don't want to mention names. I've seen plenty of that. I took part in the government for 4 years. You don't want to know what sometimes you see when you are in government. So yes,
speaking of mobilization, Professor Abbas, speaking of mobilization, Chamberlain asked a very instructive question at the start of the program when he talked about interests and how politicians are always about their interests, and the call is for the youths to, get involved. But at the end of the day, we find out that they also end up aligning with these interests, so to speak. And tie that now to your narrative earlier about the youths reaching an awakening in recent times. How do these youths now deploy these, this awakening that they've come into with the choice of political parties that we have, how do they go about making the best choice about political participation? Where do they align with, so to speak?
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question. I recall saying it on your program long ago, that when we focus on the Electoral Act, for instance, we forgot then, and we still forget now to remind ourselves that the act itself has already ripped out youth from active politics because of the enormity of cash requirements in terms of picking up forms and this and that. So it is a process naturally rigged against the youth. That is the place to start. When you have that, what can the youth do? But when you go beyond that, I also said it long ago that, look, youth have power in this country. Under 35s in Nigeria constitute about 60 or 65% of our population. Permit me again to go back to my analogy of Big Brother Nigeria, and I'm using that for a particular reason. I watched youth a couple of years ago when I decided to pay attention to what actually they were doing. They were mobilizing. I saw youth. These were like 20, 21-year-old young girls who were buying mobile phones to give to their friends to vote for their candidates on Big Brother Nigeria, BBN. And I'm thinking, you know what? And I called some of my younger friends. I said, if you just put, and I know how much they pay per vote. I said, if you organize yourself, you're about 65% of Nigerian population. If you organize yourself and you just contribute 1/10 of what you are spending to mobilize to vote for BBN, to put up candidates and support that, you will achieve what you are having. But you know what the problem with our youth? I'll tell you straight away. They don't want to do that. We want to be, they don't give us opportunity to participate. They don't give us space. Nobody is going to hand the space to you. The people you are talking about, they are elemental. The people you are talking about, the political class, this is their livelihood. They will die there. In this country, a president to you is a do or die affair. I am happy Patrick told me said a couple of days ago, it's a die or live affair for Nigeria, not a do or die. But when you have politicians whose mindset is like it's a do or die, and then you are expecting them to come and hand over this thing for you on a platter, it doesn't work like that. So youth, when I began, I said, they must devise their own strategy. They have woken up, and I'm happy about that, but they should never expect the current political class, for goodness sake, to give them a space. The youth must demand that space, and they must get it.
Professor Abbas, so do they go with the establishment? Because, in being strategic, that's the only way we can win elections. So we have the two political parties. Or do they, deploy other means of, joining other political parties or setting up other political parties themselves?
Personally, I will answer that question this way. If you look around the world today, whether you go from the Philippines, where the Marcos are coming back, or you go to Colombia, where you have an ex-gorilla becoming the president now and the first black vice president, go around the world. There's a sea change, and there are models for our youth to learn from. I am not going to pontificate. I don't want to make that mistake. I'm not going to say, don't join APC, PDP, Labour Party, whatever. I'm not going to say, don't join that or go and start, But the youth of Nigeria are super smart, they're intelligent. I cannot prescribe what they will do for them because I know for sure they know what to do. When they really want to do it, they know what to do. Some of them are going to do it. Look, parties themselves are not bad in themselves. PDP, APC, if they, I don't regard them as bad, but let's say they are associations or parties, if you call them that. It's not that they are bad. It is the operation of those parties that is terrible. People can go in there and make change from within. That's another thing I'm coming to. Youth also must be prepared to invest time. It's important, time. Because if you just say today, I'm going to form a new party, how long does it take you? But you can join existing parties, Labour Party, even PDP, APC, and work from within. And I lived in the UK when Tony Blair, Peter Mandelson, Gordon Brown, and the so-called four within the Labour Party, they were schoolmates. They built the Labour Party from within, and they gave Labour Party what they call the new Labour at that point in time. And we saw what they did between 1997 for about 10 years after. So the youth of Nigeria are smart. They are super sharp. They've been doing wonders in the world. What we are saying is that bring some of those wonders to your country, evolve your party if you have to, join the existing structure if you have to, invest time and money. At the end of the day, wait, it will happen. But don't think you are just going to wake up. But our problem is the youth want to stand up now and become president of Nigeria. It doesn't work like that. So organize yourself. At the end of the day, what you want will come to you.
Take it a little further. You know, you've been in government, so you've seen practically what plays out to a large extent, how some of these politicians think, what informs their decision, why they do what they do. So for young people, where and how do you think they should all approach this such that it's not a case wherein if you can't stand the heat, you get out of the kitchen, because this is not a 100-meter dash. It's a marathon. They need to be there and get their voices heard big time. How do you think they should, number one, organize themselves? Where should they focus the most energy to make either this short-term impact or in the long term?
Thanks so much, Chamberlain, for that. You hit the nail on the head. Look, I've chatted with you and some of your colleagues a few times. I came out of the government. I had an opportunity to pick my bag and run out of this country because it was hot. But I told myself the initial mistake our own fathers and grandfathers made was that they left Nigeria, they went overseas to study and to get whatever, and they decided to live there permanently and abandon this country to crooks and idiots who they came back to meet, and their children are coming back to meet at the end of the day. That is a mistake I don't want to make again. And I told myself, you know what? If the kitchen is hot, I will get in there, stay in there, and get more coat layers on my skin until at least either I'm able to withstand the heat or the heat consume me, whatever happens. That is a mental approach our youth must have. It's very, very important. That's number one. Number two, the Nigerian youth needs self-personal development. I know what I'm talking about. I will tell you. You cannot understand Nigerian politics by just reading newspapers. I just finished reading probably for the 10th time Wole Soyinka's Ibadan the Penkelemesi years. And I was frightened, and I'm still frightened now to see correlation between what is going on now and what went on in the Wild Wild West in those days and in Ibadan Penkelemesi years. The future for Nigeria is dastardly, whether we like it or not. And that's where the youth will have to start with. They have to start, first of all, giving themselves that self-awareness that our country today is on the precipice. We are ruled by people, unfortunately, who don't seem to understand that Nigeria today has almost fallen into an abyss. I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but you have to call out certain things. You have to call what is a spade a spade. Youth have that self-awareness to do. I've talked about organizing themselves is important. Of course, self-awareness will have to come before organizing. And the whole idea of just saying, you know what, if I can't be there, I'm going to join them, I'm going to crave, I'm going to hit this. It won't serve anybody at the end of the day. I live in states in which I'm sorry to say, I have idiots who are making policies, government policies on daily basis. And we have to live with that. What is wrong with us? Nigerians are, I'm not the one who's saying, even Barack Obama as a president of the US said Nigeria are some of the smartest people living in the US and then everywhere in the world. We can do this. But what is important is self-awareness is important, self-development. Let me give you an example. And I'm happy you raised a question with your last guest when they were talking about inability to choose a running mate and this and that. And I'm happy the way your guest answered that. It shows a lack of preparation. But let me stretch it back a bit. Chief Obafemi Awolowo resigned his post in 1970-71 as the Federal Commissioner for Finance and Deputy to go on, saying that apart from that, he could no longer serve under the democratic government, that he needed at least 3 years to prepare to run for Nigeria's presidency. That was in the 70s. Fast forward 40, 50 years later, you have people who are holding ministerial position and CBN governorship saying, no, by the way, I want to contest Nigerian presidency. Well, I'm not going to resign. No, I'll be serving as a minister, or I'll be the CBN, I'll be in the CBN. Oh, come and get me a former run for Nigerian president. Are you kidding me? You see serious politicians of the past, they will take 3, 4, 5 years to prepare to being the president of the country. So what is going on is a consuming field. It shouldn't surprise anybody who understands the political dynamics and historians.
If I may comment on the conversation, I'd like to interrupt your thoughts a bit. Sorry about that. When we talk about Nigerian youths, it would seem that there is, I hope that we're not using a one-size-fits-all mold. Yes, there are youths who, largely we seem to be talking about those who are in university. Those are those who are certainly in one type of vocational training or the other. But then, some people will say that that might not typify the entire population of Nigerian youths. First, how would you delineate them, and how can we break down this figure, this 65% of the population, to thoroughly understand just perhaps what their preferences might be, how traditions and norms affect them, their culture, for instance, religion, and maybe perhaps how that could affect how it is that they effectively participate in politics?
Thank you very much, Margaret. I think that was very helpful. But look, when I use the word youth, and again, I am very much aware of the fluidity of the age bracket. You know, in Nigeria, we have seen people who are 75 calling themselves youths. We have seen national youth leader in Nigeria who are 65, 70, you know, stuff like that. But what I'm trying to do here is to appeal to what you can call a universal common sense. When you say somebody is a youth in civilized community, you're not thinking about a 65 or 70-year-old. Maybe at best you're talking about somebody from maybe between the age of 20 and maybe at best 45 or thereabout. I am in my early 50s. I don't consider myself as a youth anymore by that bracket. But it doesn't mean that I don't have youthful ideas. That's number one in terms of age. But in terms of dispensations and orientations, I completely agree with you. You have so many youths who are not, you know, some of them are in university, formal vocation, education and vocation, some are in this and that. But what is important to me, Margaret, to your question, is that I am not looking at segments now. I am looking at a particular age bracket whose lives today seem to have been mortgaged, to have been completely dehumanized and jaded by the Nigerian, you know, governance system, is what I'm looking at. And to break it down, whether you are youth in schools today or in a formal education training, or you are in a kind of a vocational training, you know, albeit, you know, apprenticeship and this and that, you still have a stake in this country. Whatever is going on in Nigeria today affects you. And again, if you go back to the, you know, to the politics of the old, and sorry, I keep on going back because to understand where you are, you must know where you're coming from, to be clear about it. And you don't know where you are coming from, you won't know where you are, and you cannot be able to plan for the future. So we have to keep on going back to the past. In those days, you have people who are, for goodness sake, we all know about Chief Michael Imodu, what he did in this country with his labor movement. He wasn't a professor. Super sharp, super committed. He was able to mobilize workers in this country, labor force in this country of different trades, beliefs, religions, you know, persuasions and this and that. And they delivered fantastically. And we hold this country to people like that.
So that's the thing, that Prof, sorry to interrupt your thoughts again. Do you think that, you know, Nigerian youths can find, because this is, you spoke of an awakening. One of the things that we were told gave President Buhari his victory in 2015 were the youths. I mean, they were one of the elements that gave him his victory. He has always had a pretty strong following in the north. I mean, mustering at least 11 million votes by himself, majorly made up of youths. Do you think that youths today see a common cause? Have they been able to rally despite language, despite religion, despite, because sometimes it would seem that, and also perhaps despite educational background, do you think that they would really be able to rally around a common cause?
Okay, I think I'll be lying if I say a straightforward yes to your answer, because it means I'll be very, very naive. I'll be naive about the roles that politics, politicking, and religion play in our national life. I'll be naive to say that if you call a youth from Delta to the region, or you call a youth from Yoruba land today, or a youth from Hausa, those three youths and four, whatever they might be, will react in the same way, with the same, you know, purpose to whatever you place. And that is because there is so much politics infused in them. But the truth here is, hunger has no discrimination. Death has no discrimination. When you sit this youth down, take away from them the first tuning, so to say, of the political class, who manipulate and use them, this youth, for their whims and caprices. If you call those youth out and you put them together, you'll be shocked that the youth from the north is not thinking any differently from the youth from the south, whether southwest or southeast. We've seen youths from different parts of the country speak the same language on so many national issues. But that is possible because they are enlightened, because they are organized. And I think that is where the challenge of youth leadership will be. Look, I schooled, I was in UI in Metropolitan from 88 to 90, then live 90 to 95. And I was telling some of my youthful friends nowadays, I said, look, in our own generation, I'm sure some of you witnessed it. There was no social media. If we are going to mobilize for student union protests in those days when I was in UI, you see youth leaders will leave UI to travel to all the way to Kaduna. We didn't have phone to go and mobilize youth in Kaduna or Sokoto or Bauchi in those days and stuff like that. We would take 2 months to plan all those things because there was no phone, there was no social media, and we achieved mammoth result. Make no mistake. When ENSA happened and my friends were talking, I said ENSA was huge. It was a huge, for me, was a turning point for Nigerian youth. But I said ENSA also should look back into what was done in the past. Because we were not fighting democratic forces. We were fighting brutal dictatorship, military dictatorship in those days. So you're absolutely right. Religion, culture and so many things play a role. But what is important is the way these values have been deeply politicized to divide Nigerian youth. And that is a challenge for Nigerian youth.
Prof,
how to bring themselves together and go beyond that.
Let's wind down with this. I mean, in your opening, you cited an example where, someone was going there for, 3,000 naira or 1,500 naira. Now, there's this narrative, this school of thought that believes that those who actually vote and choose the people who lead this country are those cadre of people who perhaps have little or no education. And then the people who are the problem may just be the middle class or those who are supposed to have that much education. And so when we speak about leadership recruitment process, the message doesn't resonate with those lower cadre of people. And that if the middle class were to actually stand up and be counted, they can make that difference. And perhaps that's why those politicians think, look, our message is not meant for you people. We know where the message is meant for. It is those down there who we can sort out in a little way, and they can stand the heat. They will do the voting. Is that right?
Chamberlain, absolutely right. And I think I've said it several times. I have a friend who's pretty high in politics. I won't mention their name or their sex. We're talking about a very, very serious national issue. And this person occupies a very, very sensitive post as I'm talking today in Nigeria. And I told them, I'm using them there because I don't want to disclose their sex. And I told them that, look, this thing should be like this. Listen to what the intellectuals, the elites, listen to what the middle class is saying, this and that. And this person looked at me and said, Prof, I'm not bothered about those people at all. I'm only concerned about the people who are going to vote on that day. And I've said that, Chamberlain, on your program many times. Our youth should not be social media warriors. Social media don't vote. The current, what is going on now at the moment now, in which people are now forcing people to go and get what is it called, PVC. Or don't come to church without your PVC. Don't come to church. Or don't come to this. You have to show me. Oh, okay, it's good, but you have to look at the intent. If you force me to get my PVC without making me understand why I need to go and get the PVC, can you vote me? Can you force me to vote? The answer is no. I can get my PVC because I want to please my pastor to enter church, but you won't force me to vote. What is important is to make the youth to be aware of why they need that PVC. Because as you've said, really, I have seen it. I have run an election in this country alongside others for a candidate in Lagos. And I saw those who vote. Go and check how. Because it's supposed to have 25 million people. How many actually ever vote? 1 million, 1.2 million, 1.1 million, with everything you deploy. And that's it. I'm talking about Lagos, for goodness sake. So at the end of the day, the elites in the country are going to, I've joked before about it, they're going to be watching Manchester and Arsenal that day when the people are voting, and they'll be asking, oh, by the way, who's leading? They're not going to do it. And that is why I keep on acting on the role of the youth. And again, I go back to what Mark said. I'm very happy she pointed out that. I'm not talking about the youth only in classroom or the academic youth. No, youth in general. In this country, we have seen youth. We have seen people who have not been to university educate the largest political followership. You know who I'm talking about. About the people in Ibadan was an example. And we have so many examples like that. So youth can reach out across and bring themselves together and checkmate. And that's what I was talking about, the strategy. If anybody comes to your show and say, oh, this is the only strategy, they're making a mistake. The youth to deploy the same effort they've deployed to become tech savvy, to become some of the leading minds in the world of technology. Nigerians are fantastic. They're great. They're fantastic. They can do it. This for them is a piecemeal. What the youth need today is a direction. Is somebody to say, hang on, guys, I have been here before. I know what is going to. This is what we should be doing. It may not even be to change anything in 2023. It may be, you know what? you woke up too early in 2023 or to 2023, this guy will muscle you out of it. Let's take the next 4 years and start planning and decisively want to go there. The good work, the hard work should start now. Otherwise, 2023 will be determined only by the market women, only by downfall drivers, only by the NURTW who have been incredibly empowered to make sure that their own voters actually turn out. They're some of the best organized. It's deliberate. Don't let's kid ourselves. So the message for Nigerian youth is that shine your eyes and see what is coming at you. You can do it.
What a note to end it. And by the way, they are the ones INEC used to distribute the logistics, the materials, the sensitive materials, and the like. So quite instructive there. Well, thank you very much indeed, Ademola Abbas, Professor of International Law and Global Affairs expert.
My pleasure. Thank you.